The Galactic Empire had spread its influence across the galaxy for centuries. Once a small, fragmented collection of warring star systems, it had now grown into an unstoppable force. The Empire's rule stretched across countless worlds, controlling alien species, resources, and entire star systems. It had crushed rebellions, outwitted enemies, and claimed the title of the most powerful empire in known space. The Empire's fleet, led by its advanced warships, was unrivaled, its weapons capable of devastating planets with a single strike. It was a time of peace in the Empire, but it was not a peaceful peace. The Empire's military might had created an illusion of calm, but beneath the surface, there was a growing discontent among its citizens. Some alien species were unhappy with their treatment, while others secretly longed for freedom from the Empire's iron grip. But these rebellions were nothing new to the Empire. The Empire had crushed countless uprisings before, and it believed no one could challenge its power. The Empire's leaders were confident in their control and their ability to deal with any problem that arose. In the highest chambers of the Empire's government, the leaders gathered to discuss the next phase of their expansion. The Empire had set its sights on a new region of the galaxy, an area that had remained largely unexplored. New planets to conquer, new resources to control, and more power to be added to the Empire's already massive reach. But there was one planet that the Empire had not yet fully examined, a planet that was so far from the Empire's borders that it was considered insignificant. Earth. The Galactic Empire had always regarded Earth as a primitive world. The humans who lived there were seen as nothing more than an afterthought, a species too focused on their own survival to pose any threat to the Empire. They were not part of any galactic alliances, and their technology was far behind the Empire's. Advanced fleets. As far as the Empire was concerned, Earth was not worth the trouble of even monitoring. Yet, in the depths of the Empire's archives, there were some reports that hinted at something unusual about the humans. But these reports had long been dismissed as nothing more than rumors. One evening, during a routine meeting, a new report was brought to the attention of the Empire's highest leaders. It was a transmission from one of their outer colonies, and it was unlike any the Empire had received before. The transmission was unclear, filled with static and broken signals. However, the message was unmistakable. Humans from Earth had sent a distress signal. The Empire's leaders dismissed it at first, but something in the message made them pause. "We've encountered the humans in the outskirts of the galaxy," the report said. "They're sending ships, unsophisticated, primitive ships, but they're coming." The leaders of the Empire listened carefully as the transmission continued. The message spoke of human warships, unknown to the Empire. The small fleet of ships was moving swiftly across the galaxy, far from Earth's known space, and it was heading directly toward the Empire's borders. "Their fleet is growing," the report warned. "They're advancing. We don't know how, but they're coming." At first, the Empire's leaders laughed. They mocked the idea of a fleet of human ships challenging the Empire. They knew the humans were weak, their technology outdated compared to the Empire's superior forces. But the idea of humans daring to challenge the mighty Galactic Empire was absurd, and the leaders felt no real threat. They ordered the report dismissed, and the Empire continued with its plans for expansion. Yet, in the shadows, something changed. Admiral Threx, a seasoned officer in the Empire's fleet, had heard rumors about the humans before. He had spent years studying the intelligence reports, and he wasn't as quick to dismiss them as others. He had heard whispers of strange events occurring around Earth, events that no one could explain. There were rumors that the humans had discovered a new way to fight, a new way to build weapons. Weapons that didn't rely on the usual methods of destruction. Admiral Threx could sense that something was different about the humans. He had been involved in many campaigns across the galaxy, and his instincts told him that these humans were not as weak as the Empire believed. He could feel the unease in the air as he sat at his desk, surrounded by maps and reports. He studied the trajectory of the human fleet, trying to determine their next move. They may be small, Admiral Threx thought to himself, but there is something in their resolve. They won't be easily defeated. In the corridors of the Empire's fleet, there was an underlying sense of doubt, though it was never openly discussed. Some officers, like Admiral Threx, knew that the humans couldn't be underestimated. They were a species that had survived against all odds for thousands of years. How could such a species be so easily ignored? As the weeks passed, more reports started to flood in from the outer colonies. The humans' fleet was growing, and it was moving faster than anyone had anticipated. The human ships, though seemingly outdated, were fast, efficient, and unpredictable. They were unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. There were no grand fleets of warships, no massive weapons of mass destruction, just a small group of humans working together with a fierce determination. The humans had found ways to outsmart the Empire's superior forces. "Impossible," said Commander Wren, a high-ranking officer in the Empire's fleet, as he examined the latest report. "How are they doing this?" "They must be hiding something," said another officer, his voice filled with doubt. "We've underestimated them for too long." Despite the growing unease, the Empire continued to press forward, believing that their superior numbers and firepower would be enough to crush the humans once and for all. The Empire's fleet moved to intercept the human ships, confident in their victory. They would destroy the humans and show them that they were nothing more than a speck in the grand design of the galaxy. But they were wrong. The first encounter between the human fleet and the Empire's forces took place in the farthest reaches of known space. The Empire's ships, with their advanced weaponry and superior technology, expected an easy victory. They believed the human ships would fall apart at the first sign of a real battle. But what happened next shook the Empire to its core. The human ships did not retreat. They did not surrender. They fought back with a tenacity and cunning that caught the Empire completely off guard. The Empire's fleet was forced to retreat in confusion, unable to comprehend how the humans were able to withstand their assault. The battle was over, and the humans had won. The defeat of the Empire's fleet was a shock. No one had expected it, especially not the generals and admirals who had grown accustomed to victory. The battle had been brief, but its consequences were far-reaching. The Empire's leadership had expected a simple mission to neutralize a group of primitive humans. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. Admiral Threx stood before the large holoscreen in his office, watching the data streams from the battle. The Empire's ships had been routed. The humans had fought fiercely and smartly, using tactics that the Empire was not prepared for. What had seemed like an easy victory turned into an embarrassing defeat. His mind raced as he considered the situation. "This should not have happened," Admiral Threx muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the data. "We've underestimated them." Threx was one of the few officers who had always believed that the humans were a threat. Unlike the others who dismissed them as weak, Threx had studied Earth and its history. He knew the human race had a resilience that could not be easily broken. Now, that belief was becoming painfully clear. The Empire's High Command convened a meeting to discuss the situation. They had expected the humans to fold under the weight of the Empire's might, but they had done the opposite. The humans had fought back with surprising strength and resolve. Now the high-ranking officers were furious. "They are not just primitive beings," Commander Wren said, his voice filled with frustration. "They are a problem that we did not foresee. We cannot ignore them any longer." Grand General Valora, the supreme leader of the Empire's military, stared coldly at the hologram of the battle. Her face showed no emotion, but her thoughts were sharp and calculating. "The humans have shown us something," General Valora said. "They are not what we thought. Their tactics, their technology, it is not advanced in the way ours is, but it is effective. We underestimated them once. We will not make that mistake again." The room fell silent as the generals exchanged uneasy glances. The thought of the humans becoming a real threat to the Empire had never been part of their plans. They had grown too comfortable, too confident. Now, they were facing the consequences. "We will send a stronger fleet," Valora continued, her voice firm. "This time, we will end this. The humans will be crushed, and the galaxy will know that no one challenges the Galactic Empire." Admiral Threx stepped forward, his expression serious. "I suggest we take a different approach, General. The humans are not like any species we have encountered. If we attack with brute force, we may only push them into a corner, making them more dangerous." Valora raised an eyebrow, clearly not pleased by the suggestion. "What do you propose, Threx?" "We need to understand them. Study them more carefully," Threx said. "Only then can we truly defeat them. They are unpredictable, but they are also intelligent. If we continue to underestimate them, we may find ourselves facing a war we cannot win." Valora considered his words for a moment. "Very well. You will be put in charge of the intelligence mission. Gather more information about these humans and their strategies, but do not delay. The Empire's pride has been wounded, and we need to put an end to this rebellion." Threx nodded, understanding the weight of the task ahead of him. He knew that the humans' victory was not just a military defeat. It was a blow to the Empire's reputation. If the humans were allowed to grow stronger, they could become a real threat. Threx was determined to find out everything he could about them, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, on Earth, the human fleet was making preparations for what they knew would be a long and difficult war. Commander Alara stood at the helm of the human flagship, the Resolute, staring out at the stars. The victory over the Empire's fleet had given them a small sense of hope, but she knew that the real fight was just beginning. "We've only won one battle," Ilara said, her voice calm but serious. "The Empire will not take this defeat lightly. They will come at us with everything they have." "We're ready for them," Lieutenant Harris replied, his tone confident. "We've learned a lot from that first engagement. We can take them on." Alara turned to face her crew. "We can't afford to be overconfident. We may have won, but the Empire has far more resources than we do. We need to be smart, and we need to stay one step ahead of them. The humans may be small, but we've got something the Empire doesn't. Our ingenuity." The crew nodded, each person knowing the weight of what they had to do. Earth was outmatched, but the human race had always survived against impossible odds. This time would be no different. The human fleet, though smaller and less advanced, would use the very thing that had allowed them to survive for centuries: resourcefulness. For the first time in years, Earth had a chance, but the victory was still far from guaranteed. As the Yafi human fleet moved toward their next target, a strategically important planet in the Empire's territory, Admiral Threx's intelligence operation was beginning to bear fruit. Threx had dispatched a group of his best spies to infiltrate human communications and observe their fleet movements. It was slow work, but he was learning more about the humans with each passing day. One thing became clear: humanity was not like any species the Empire had encountered. Their methods of warfare were unconventional, relying on creativity rather than brute strength. They did not fight like the war-hungry Zerg or the technologically superior Valdrak. The humans used their environment, their knowledge, and their will to survive to gain the upper hand. "What are they doing?" Threx muttered as he reviewed the latest intelligence. The humans had set up a series of hidden bases, using the asteroid, belts and moons of their home system to hide their movements. It was a strategy that would have been ignored by the Empire's commanders, who relied on sheer power and overwhelming numbers. But the humans weren't interested in a fair fight. They wanted to win, by any means necessary. Threx sat back in, his chair deep in thought. He had no doubt that the humans would continue to surprise him. They had already proved they could think outside the box. They could fight a war without following the rules. "This is not a typical war," Threx said, quietly. "This will be a battle of wills." As the Empire's forces continued to prepare for the final assault on Earth, they still didn't fully understand the true nature of their enemies. The humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their future, for their very existence, and that made them more dangerous than any weapon the Empire could ever build. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but the humans were already showing the galaxy that they were not an enemy to be taken lightly. The Galactic Empire, with all its vast resources and mighty warships, found itself struggling to keep up with the unpredictable nature of the human defense. Admiral Threx stood in the command center of the Empire's flagship, his mind working furiously as he watched the latest reports from the front lines. The human fleet had already managed to slow the Empire's advance by using tactics that were not only unconventional, but also surprisingly effective. The humans had set traps using asteroids, scattered their fleet to confuse the enemy, and even launched a series of decoy missions that kept the Empire guessing. "The humans are clever," Threx muttered, staring at the data. "They are fighting a different kind of war. It's not about firepower. It's about thinking on their feet." His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Commander Wren, who looked grim as he entered the room. "Admiral, we've encountered another human ambush," Wren reported. "They lured our ships into a dead zone in a nearby star system. We lost 2 ships, and the rest of the fleet is scattered and disoriented." Threx nodded slowly, absorbing the information. "This is exactly what I feared. They are not just fighting with their ships. They are using the environment, using space itself to their advantage. If we don't start adapting quickly, we'll be playing into their hands." Wren glanced at the Admiral. "What should we do, sir?" "We need to rethink our strategy," Threx said firmly. "We cannot continue to rely on our superior numbers and firepower. The humans are too resourceful. They'll exploit every weakness we show them. We must be unpredictable, just like them." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Commander Ilara was also deep in thought. The victory over the Empire's initial fleet had given humanity a brief moment of relief, but she knew that it was only a temporary advantage. The Empire was coming in full force, and their next move could be the decisive one. Sitting in the command room of the human flagship Resolute, Ilara addressed her officers. "We have one chance to stop them," she said, her voice steady but filled with determination. "The Empire is coming with everything they have. But we know something they don't. We know how to fight for survival." Lieutenant Harris nodded. "We're already using everything we have, hit-and-run tactics, surprise attacks, environmental warfare, but we have to keep moving. We can't let them pin us down." "That's right," Ilara said. "The Empire expects a traditional war. They expect to wipe us out with their massive fleets. We're not going to give them that. We'll hit them where it hurts, when they least expect it." Ilara turned to the holographic display in the center of the room, showing the positions of the human fleet and the incoming Empire forces. "We'll use the asteroid fields and the gas giants in our sector. We'll make them chase us through narrow, dangerous paths where they can't use their full firepower. We'll strike quickly, then disappear before they can retaliate." The officers exchanged glances, impressed by Ilara's strategy. "We'll use what we know," Ilara continued. "The Empire relies on sheer power, but we have speed, stealth, and adaptability on our side. We'll fight smart, not hard." As the human fleet moved through the galaxy, they executed their plan flawlessly. The Empire's fleet, though enormous, found itself trapped in a constant cycle of confusion. Every time they thought they had a target, the humans vanished into the shadows of nearby planets or asteroids. The Empire's once proud military might seem almost helpless against the humans' guerrilla tactics, but even as they struggled to keep up with the humans, the Empire's commanders were starting to see something even more troubling. The humans weren't just clever, They were unyielding. Despite their losses, they kept fighting, refusing to surrender. They fought with the determination of a species that had nothing to lose, and that made them far more dangerous than the Empire had ever anticipated. One of the Empire's most senior officers, Grand General Valora, stood before a map of the galaxy, her face hard as stone. "They are relentless," Valora said, her voice low. "Every time we think we've cornered them, they slip away. They're not afraid of losing. They're not afraid of death. They just keep coming." "We underestimated them," Commander Wren said, his voice filled with frustration. "We thought they were just another species to conquer, but they've shown us that they are far more than that." Valora's gaze hardened. "We can't keep playing their game. We need to take control. If we keep chasing them through the galaxy, like this, we'll wear ourselves down before we even get close to Earth." Valora turned to Threx, who had been silent for a long time. "What do you suggest, Admiral?" Threx paused before responding. "We need to force them into a decisive battle. We cannot continue to chase them forever. If we give them the upper hand, they will wear us down and win. We need to find a way to bring them to us." The plan was risky, but it was their only hope. Threx suggested luring the humans into a trap using the last of the Empire's remaining unprotected worlds. If they could make the humans believe that the Empire was vulnerable, they would come out of hiding. Once they were in position, the Empire could strike with everything it had. Back on Earth, Alara and her team were still dealing with the aftermath of their latest ambush. The victory had come at a cost, and the human fleet had suffered some damage. But Alara knew they had to keep pushing forward. "I've got bad news," Harris said, his face grim. "The Empire is massing a fleet near one of their outer colonies. If they succeed in luring us there, they could hit us hard." Alara felt a cold shiver down her spine. It was exactly what the Empire would do. They would set a trap, hoping to catch the humans off guard. But Alara wasn't ready to walk into it. "Not if we can help it," she replied. "We'll use their own strategy against them. They think we're predictable, but we're not. We'll make them chase us, just like before. But this time, we're going to fight smart." Alara gathered her officers for a final briefing. "We'll make it look like we're falling into their trap. We'll make them think they have us right where they want us. But when the time comes, we'll strike first." The human fleet set course for the Empire's outer colony, pretending to be on the defensive. But Alara knew that this would be the moment of truth. If they were going to survive, they would have to outwit the Empire one final time. As the humans prepared for the coming battle, they knew that it would not just be a test of strength. It would be a test of will, of intelligence, and of survival. The Empire may have had more ships, more firepower, and more resources. But the humans had something far more important, the will to fight, no matter the cost. The real battle for the galaxy had begun. And for the first time in history, the fate of the Empire was in the hands of a species it had once considered insignificant. The humans were finally walking into the trap the Empire had set, or so it seemed. The Empire's commanders believed they had successfully lured the human fleet to an outer colony, thinking they would strike when the humans were at their weakest. The Empire's strategy was simple: overwhelm the humans with sheer force. But as the Empire's warships approached the colony, a sense of unease began to settle in the commanders' minds. Something didn't feel right. Admiral Threx stood at the helm of his flagship, watching as the Empire's fleet moved toward the colony. The trap was set, and all that was left was for the humans to walk into it. The Empire's warships were ready, their weapons fully charged. Victory was close. "Admiral, we have the humans on our sensors," reported Commander Wren. "They're moving toward the colony, just as we expected." Threx nodded, though his gut told him there was more to this than met the eye. The humans had already surprised the Empire once, and Threx wasn't foolish enough to believe they would simply march into a trap. He knew their kind. They were clever, resourceful, and they never gave up. They fought with everything they had, and they weren't afraid to fight dirty if it meant survival. "Stay alert," Threx ordered. "Don't assume anything. These humans are not like the others we've faced." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Commander Alara and her officers were preparing for their next move. The Empire thought they had the humans figured out, but Alara wasn't so sure. She knew the Empire's commanders were underestimating them. They believed the humans would fall for the trap. But Alara had learned something important from their earlier battles. They had to fight the Empire's expectations, not just their ships. The human fleet had made it look like they were preparing for a desperate fight. The humans were playing the part of the retreating force, trying to lure the Empire into a false sense of security. But Alara knew better. The humans weren't running. They were setting the stage for the real battle. "We've got one shot at this," Alara said as she stood before her crew. "The Empire is overconfident. They think we're backing down, but we're not. They've underestimated our ability to fight and adapt. We'll use that against them." Lieutenant Harris raised an eyebrow. "You're saying we're leading them into a trap?" "Exactly," Alara replied. "But this time, it's their trap. We're going to hit them hard and fast. We'll make them think they have us cornered, and then we'll strike." The human fleet had carefully calculated every movement, every decision, and every placement. It looked like the humans were in retreat, but that was all part of the plan. They would lead the Empire's fleet into a narrow asteroid belt where the Empire's larger ships would struggle to maneuver. The humans knew the Empire would follow them, believing the humans had nowhere to go but into the trap. But the humans weren't running. They were preparing. As the Empire's fleet closed in on the colony, Threx's command center buzzed with activity. His sensors detected an anomaly. One of the human ships had suddenly changed course, heading toward the asteroid belt. "Admiral, the humans are headed for the asteroid field," Wren called out. "Are they retreating into it? Should we pursue?" Threx's eyes narrowed as he analyzed the situation. The asteroid belt was dangerous, even for the Empire's advanced fleet. It was full of debris, erratic rock formations, and hidden dangers. It wasn't a place for a full-on battle, but the humans had never shown any fear of such dangers. "No," Threx said slowly. "They're leading us into it. They want us to follow them." Wren looked at the Admiral, puzzled. "Why would they do that? They'll be trapped." Threx's expression hardened. "Because they don't think they're trapped. They want us to follow them. They want us to make the first move." Back on Earth, Alara was watching the Empire's fleet approach the asteroid belt. The trap was set, and all they needed to do was wait for the Empire to make the first move. "Are we ready?" Alara asked her officers, her voice steady. "Ready, Commander," Harris replied. "We'll hit them the moment they cross into the belt. We've got the advantage in this environment." Alara's heart raced. She knew this would be their most dangerous move yet. If they couldn't defeat the Empire now, the humans' chances of winning the war would be slim. But she had faith in her fleet. She had faith in the people of Earth. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their future. As the Empire's ships entered the asteroid belt, the humans sprang into action. The human fleet, scattered across the region, used the asteroid formations to their advantage. They appeared from hidden positions behind the rocks, launching sudden and unexpected attacks. The Empire's ships were forced into tight, narrow spaces, their large weapons unable to fire at full power. The humans used fast, agile ships to strike quickly, then disappear into the shadows. "Admiral, we're being hit from all sides," Wren reported urgently. "They're using the asteroid field to hide and attack from unexpected angles," Threx gritted his teeth. The Empire's fleet was struggling to maneuver in the dense asteroid field. The humans knew the terrain better than anyone, and they were using it to outsmart the Empire at every turn. "This is madness," Wren muttered. "We're being picked off one by one." "We can't let them get away with this," Threx said, his voice hard. "Bring us closer to their flagship. We'll deal with their leader." But even as they moved closer, the humans kept up their relentless attacks. Every time the Empire's ships thought they had found a target, the humans vanished, only to strike again from a different angle. Ilara's strategy was working. The Empire's fleet was scattered, their ships disoriented, and their commanders struggling to regain control. The human fleet moved in swift, calculated bursts, disabling the Empire's most powerful warships one by one. "We're winning this battle," Ilara said quietly as she watched the Empire's ships fall one by one. "We just need to keep the pressure on." The tide of the battle had shifted. The Empire, once confident in its victory, was now on the defensive. The humans had turned the tables, using their resourcefulness and adaptability to outmaneuver their enemy. But Threx was not one to give up easily. He ordered his remaining ships to form a defensive line around the flagship. They would make one last stand. "We've lost too much," Threx said, his voice tinged with frustration. "But we will not let the humans win this easily. Not while I'm still breathing." The humans, however, were relentless. They continued to press forward, their attacks growing stronger with each passing minute. They had proven that they could fight not just with their weapons, but with their minds. "We're not done yet," Ilara whispered as she watched the Empire's fleet retreat. "Not by a long shot." As the Empire's forces pulled back, Ilara knew that the humans had won another battle. But the war was far from over. The Empire would regroup, and they would come back stronger. But the humans had shown them that they were not a race to be taken lightly. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they would keep fighting, no matter the odds. The real fight for the future of the galaxy had only just begun. The Empire had been shaken, but it was not yet broken. The humans' unexpected victory in the asteroid belt had left a mark on the Empire's pride. The battle had been a brutal wake-up call for the Empire's leadership. It was clear now that the humans were not just another species to conquer, they were a force to be reckoned with. The Empire had underestimated them, and it was paying the price. Admiral Threx stood at the command center of the flagship, staring out at the stars. The battle had been costly, but the Empire still had a powerful fleet. The humans had managed to land a few critical blows, but the Empire was not done. They would regroup, rebuild, and strike again. "We can still win this," Threx muttered, mostly to himself. He knew the humans were clever, but they weren't invincible. The Empire had far more resources at its disposal. The human fleet was smaller, weaker, and would eventually run out of steam. They just needed to keep pushing forward, keep forcing the humans into a corner. "Admiral, we've lost contact with several of our frontline ships," Commander Wren reported. "The humans are still harassing our forces. They're not letting up." Threx slammed his fist on the control panel. "We need to end this now. If we don't, we'll lose everything. The humans are getting stronger with every victory. We cannot let that continue." The decision was made. The Empire would launch a final all-out attack. They would use their superior numbers and resources to overwhelm the humans once and for all. The Empire would no longer play the game of cat and mouse. It would be a fight to the finish. Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Ilara stood at the front of her fleet, her eyes scanning the horizon. The recent victory had been hard-earned, but Ilara knew that the war was far from over. The Empire would come again, and this time, they would come with everything they had. "We can't afford to rest," Ilara said to her officers. "The Empire has not given up. They're only regrouping. We need to prepare for their next attack, and it will be much bigger than anything we've faced before." Lieutenant Harris nodded, his face set in determination. "We've held them off before. We can do it again." Ilara looked around at her crew, their faces a mix of exhaustion and resolve. The humans had fought hard, but they were not giving up. Earth's fate was on the line, and the human fleet was ready to make its stand. The Empire's fleet began to move once more, this time in full force. It was the largest gathering of ships the Empire had ever sent into battle. The sheer size of the fleet was overwhelming, But the humans had learned something important in the previous battles. Numbers didn't matter if you could outthink your enemy. As the Empire advanced toward Earth's last line of defense, Ilara's voice rang out through the command center of the Resolute. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "We will not fight. The Empire in open space. We will fight them where they're least expecting it. We've got one chance to turn the tide." The human fleet was ready. The time had come for the final battle. The humans had one advantage that the Empire didn't. They knew their home. Earth's terrain, its atmosphere, its gravity, everything about the planet played to the humans' strengths. The Empire had massive ships with powerful weapons, but they had never faced an enemy who could use the environment against them the way the humans could. The final battle would be fought on Earth's terms, not the Empire's. As the Empire's fleet drew closer, the human fleet moved into position. The battle would take place above Earth, in orbit, but the humans had a plan. They would use Earth's atmosphere to their advantage, drawing the Empire's ships into a trap. The Empire, with all its firepower and size, would find itself fighting, in the very place it had thought would be its greatest strength. "We need to keep them out of the atmosphere," Ilara said, her voice steady. "Once they get close to Earth, they'll be able to launch their full-scale assault. Our ships aren't as strong, but we can use the atmosphere to confuse their targeting systems." "We've got to lure them in," Lieutenant Harris said. His eyes narrowed with focus. "We'll have to sacrifice some ships, but if we can get them close enough, we can take down their flagship." The human fleet began to move, luring the Empire's ships toward Earth. The battle began in space, with both fleets exchanging fire from a distance. The Empire's ships were massive, their weapons devastating, but the humans used their agility and speed to dodge and strike. The Empire's commanders expected a quick victory, but the humans had something that the Empire couldn't account for: strategy. The human ships darted in and out of the Empire's line of fire, keeping the larger ships off balance. It was a risky move, and the humans knew they would have to take heavy losses to pull it off. But every time a human ship fell, it gave the Empire a momentary victory, and that was exactly what the humans needed. With each loss, the Empire's forces moved further into Earth's gravitational pull. It didn't take long for the Empire to realize that the humans were drawing them in. The larger ships, thinking they had the advantage, continued their advance. But the humans were faster, smarter, and they knew exactly when to strike. The trap was set. The moment the Empire's flagship entered Earth's atmosphere, the humans made their move. A wave of small, fast human ships dove into the Empire's lines, weaving between massive warships and striking at weak points in the Empire's defenses. The Empire's fleet was thrown into chaos. They had never fought a battle like this before, one where they couldn't rely on their size and power. "Now!" Ilara shouted. "Hit them with everything we've got!" The human fleet surged forward, launching everything they had at the Empire's flagship. It was a full-on assault, and the Empire's flagship, despite its size and firepower, was caught off guard. The human ships worked together, exploiting the flagship's vulnerabilities, and within moments, the flagship was crippled. "We've done it," Harris said, his voice full of disbelief. "We've actually done it!" The remaining Empire ships were thrown into disarray as their flagship fell. One by one, the humans picked them off, using the atmosphere and gravity of Earth to their advantage. The battle was over. Threx, standing on the bridge of his flagship, watched as his fleet crumbled. The humans had beaten them. The humans had won. It was a staggering defeat. Threx had given everything to the Empire, and now he realized the truth. The humans were no longer the insignificant species the Empire had once thought them to be. The Empire's fleet retreated, but the damage was done. Earth had survived. Humanity had proven its strength, its ingenuity, and its will to survive. The Empire had made the greatest mistake of all. It had underestimated humanity. As the last of the Empire's fleet disappeared into the distance, Elara stood on the bridge, of the Resolute, staring out at the stars. "We did it," she said quietly. "We saved Earth."